Okay, this is part two of Pan-Africanism. We have already talked about the African experience. Okay, we have the continental Africans, the slave trade that went on with the Africans. Now, what we have to realize, and this was brought out in several books, that the economy of Africa was extremely strong. So when the slave trade started, Africa was not under attack. Africa, the slave trade, so that's one question that a lot of people don't ask about. Like, why was slaves, why did Africans sell Africans to the Europeans? There was a lot of war. There's one major difference that you have to understand in African culture versus European culture. Europeans measure wealth by how many things you have, particularly land. That is European. Africans measured wealth and power by how many people you had. So, when they would have wars, they would take prisoners of war. So now they have these prisoners of war. Of course, the white people came and was like, what are those people? They're prisoners of war. They were selling them because that was that group's people. Weaken their power, weaken their authority, uplift theirs. I have more people, I'm more powerful, I'm getting rid of your people. There is not any information to show Africans did know that the type of cruelty these people were being sold into. They just, from what it appears, to the degree of my research, they were aware that they were gone and they were the enemy, so whatever. But there is some scholarship following a African leader having a conversation with a Portuguese leader. And, you know, it's very nice, showing a cordial relationship. My brother, how are you, thus and so forth. You know, I'm enjoying a good business relationship. You know, let me know when you're coming back for more slaves. And then later, you know, it kind of goes a little further. My brother, the last time you all were here, you not only took the slaves that you were supposed to take, but you took a couple of my people. Could you please send my people back? Hey, brother, why you not answering me anymore? Hey, brother, what happened? Hey, I'm going to come to Portugal and holler at you. Hey, I understand some of my people just got snatched off of the... Must have been a mistake. And where if you follow this communication, you will see how the Europeans got... having a completely different mindset that the original arrangement, at least in this particular case, in this recorded case, began to snowball and it got out of control. It was not what was thought or anticipated by the Africans. So, that's how this original slave trade got started. You have the diaspora, as to where these people were sold into a weakened condition because they were brought as property and, at the very least, uncivilized free labor. So even if they were to be civilized, they were second-class citizens because the assumption was you're beneath me and I have to teach you how to be a person. So we have a weakened state abroad, the African diaspora, and then we have the weakened continent, which is the thought process again Umar Johnson had said this: if we've been having in the United States, there's not a we in history, but the United States have been having a lot of shootings of black people by police, which is nothing new. The reason, the police stations came about because of the slave return rule. So police have always been what was used to regulate black people. So in our having the police violence that we have, it's as old as the concept of police. And it's kind of old hat. Some people don't know it. The overseer, the person who went back and caught the slaves, is where officer came from. So his point was, if that was happening with another country, let's say if that was happening with Chinese people, that Chinese Americans or Chinese immigrants or people from Chinese descent was being murdered in the streets, at some point we would hear from China, either by way of, because the way that you affect Europeans or especially American leadership is by way of money. There would be some trade issues, there would be some political issues, there would be some things going on saying, hey, you can't be treating our people like that abroad. Well, because the diaspora is weak and the continent of Africa is weak, because that was taken by apartheid, French, Britain, where that was, so the continent was weakened. There is no support system of the members of the diaspora. So when they're being abused, there is no country that says there's going to be some ramifications, either by way of military or by way of economics or by way of politics, that is going to speak up on behalf of these people. Which is why where it says the ideology asserts that the fate of all African peoples and countries are intertwined. So everywhere that these people are, they're together. So if we have to build a strong Africa to have a representative for the diaspora. Now, that goes back to where we start splitting off our Pan-Africanism. You'll have your Pan-Africanists like Marcus Messiah Garvey, where he was just completely back to Africa. Some people say that Marcus Garvey is the father of Pan-Africanism. That's not true. There's a lot of Pan-Africanists before him, especially two. One's name is skipping my mind, but Martin Delany was a doctor, served in the military, and he was pre-Civil War, post-Civil War. And Martin Delany was, he is considered if Marcus Garvey is the father of Pan-Africanism, Martin Delany is the grandfather of Pan-Africanism. And both of them were like, let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go back home. Let's go back to Africa. Now, you had W.E.B. Du Bois, who had a different view, still a Pan-Africanist, but he had more of an elitist view of Pan-Africanism. He actually felt that in his logic, if black people were this far behind, went from property, completely uneducated, to, in his case, exceeding the intelligence and access to white people, then the black person must actually be superior to the white person. Which, he was not in favor of going to Africa. Now, there's another frame of thought with the Back to Africa movement as to where some people go back to Africa to build a strong Africa, and that strong Africa defends the diaspora. With the diaspora being strengthened, only so many people had to be in Africa, and the black image around the world is stronger. Because in the thought process behind that is some folks is not doing anything where they are, so they definitely not needed back in Africa.